What's up, everybody? This is the week 5 workshop. We're going to be talking all about creating balance and really finding that balance and having a peace of mind about it, really. So, I am very, very excited to take you through this because we will not only be diving into what we believe balance is and what it really is, and we're also going to be looking at different dimensions of life and how we can improve in each and every single one of them. We're going to talk about behavior change and really creating that behavior change by first understanding where we are at in the stages of change. So, I have a lot of good stuff planned for this week as well. So, make sure you are on the lookout for that. We're going to be diving into things like your core soul codes and um, where you're in alignment with your goals or out of alignment with them, and really evaluating your well being throughout the week. So I'm very excited about this, and we're going to dive right in. So, very first thing I want you to do, and you might think this is strange, it's not like we're going to start off by defining wellness on our own terms. I actually want you to think about people who you think, who you know, follow, see, run into that are living a balanced life. So take a moment to just consider, who do you know that you usually go, oh my gosh, their life is just so perfect or so balanced, or so she has all her priorities in a row, or oh my gosh, she has everything. She has the body and the lifestyle and the boyfriend or the kids and this education. Like, who do you find yourself thinking about that way? Maybe it's a parent or a best friend or just someone you talk to at the gym who always tells you about all these amazing things going on in their life. So I want you to think about who you know that's living a balanced life. Um, when you're thinking about who you know, I want you to think about what stands out to you about them, right? So find the patterns from those people. When you look at the patterns of the people you know who you believe are living a balanced life, you might discover that what's really happening is that they have proper prioritization. So that's what we're really seeking, right? Balance is like the great illusion, because to have everything balanced, like, you really have to imagine like this scale that has the exact amount of pebbles on one side as the other. But pebbles come in many different shapes and sizes, right? And you might really, really love blue pebbles, so you're less likely to pick up the tiny green ones. And then someone's like, oh, don't forget this. And you run out of blue ones and you have to, but then you can't balance the scale. So maybe for you, that could be something like the physical aspect or the occupational aspect. So we'll dive into all those things and that'll make more sense. But essentially, I want you to think, after looking at who you think lives a balanced life, even if you didn't think of anybody that came to mind, then, or if you did, I still want you to ask yourself why you want balance and what would make you feel more balanced. Okay. You don't need to write this down necessarily. If you like journaling and want to, that's fine. But the goal here is to just start getting the wheels turning. This is going to be a very in-depth workshop where we're really going to be looking into life and evaluating things. So I just want you to be very present with me. You guys have been doing so amazing the past couple weeks. I know that there has been a ton of information, lots of value. I'm loading you guys up, but it's really because I truly believe that, like, the things I'm teaching are the things that have changed my life, the things that have changed hundreds of people that I've worked with around the world lives. And it's something that I want you guys to have. But more importantly, it's things that I know I have used and others have used post show to really create balance, peace of mind, food freedom, etc. So I want to give you as much as I can so that you can find what works for you and make it happen. So please don't be skipping out on the celebrations of wins. Don't be skipping out on the exercise. Last week, burning the food rules. Last week, posting on social media, talking about how you're absolutely killing it in something. Like, I really want you guys to take part in this. Don't just skip something and do the next thing. Remember, what were the things you could sabotage yourself on? Go back, make sure you're not doing that. Okay, so let's get back to this one. I know I went on a tangent, but it's just really important that I got that out. So asking yourself, thinking about what would make you feel more balanced. Now, you guys know how much I love contrast, right? Self-love. I want you to think about what makes you feel unbalanced, imbalanced. What makes you feel like you're not being very balanced? What takes you out of balance? What is the thing that would make one side of the scale tip a little bit more than the other. Maybe you're thinking, I spend so much more time in the gym than anywhere else or on anything else. Or I spend so much time relaxing and watching TV that I don't really get my schoolwork done. Or I spend so much time on my schoolwork and studying that everything else gets on the back burner. Or I spend so much time working that I forget to take care of myself, like eat and meditate or go to the gym. Okay, now let's evaluate your life. This is where things are going to get in depth. And I'm fun about this. I'm excited because this is going to be fun. So, we're going to look at the 7 dimensions of well-being. And as we go through each of these dimensions, I want you to give it a rating on a scale from 0 to 10. Okay? 0 being absolute worst thing possible, 10 being best thing ever. Like, I've got this one down pat. Like, this is my dimension. I focus on so much. 0 being like, yeah, I put this on the back burner all the time. Please avoid choosing the number 5. I want this to be like a forced choice. So when you choose the number 5, you're basically creating like an out for yourself not to truly evaluate it. So I want you to think about a scale from 0 to 10 without 5. So we're going to start in each of these: social, physical, occupational, environmental, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. We're going to go through all of these. I'm going to explain to you what they are and what each of them means. And then at the very end, it'll all start making sense. But make sure you have your notebooks as well, take notes on, or if you have your own journal, that's fine as well. But let's dive into the social aspect. So this is really about asking yourself, and a lot of the dimensions I'm going to cover are really about asking yourself the right questions. That's going to allow you to give yourself a rating, right? Based on the way that these are interpreted and explained. So, you want to ask yourself things like, do you get along well with others? Do you appreciate others' uniqueness or abilities? Do you feel connected to other people? Do you feel like you really truly belong to a social unit? So maybe you feel like you really belong in your team. Maybe you compete on a team. Maybe you feel like you really belong to your family, to your friend group, to your coworkers. Do you sincerely care for the welfare of others? Like, do you find yourself being very conscientious and thinking about them and how other people are doing and how you can help them be better or make a better impact? So, it's like, if we feel disconnected, lonely, or isolated, this will lead to poor health. Okay, so this will also lead to not feeling balanced. This will also lead to feeling maybe possibly depressed, anxious, etc. So a lot of times after a show, we spend so much time prepping for a show, being so focused on just the show, just the prep, that a lot of times other parts of our life get left out, like the social aspect. I know some women would tell me they didn't go to any social outings because they were afraid of the food. And I was like, girl, you need to work with me, right? Like, we're going to work through that because you should be able to be around food without it bothering you, right? Again, we've talked about that before. So anyways, the social well-being is really about connection. And even connecting with a pet can benefit your health. So, even though we feel bouts of loneliness, having healthy relationships with others can feel short-lived. I remember after my most recent, I say most recent, but by the time more people listen to this over the years, it won't make sense. So a show in September 2018, I got depressed after, and I made it a point, knowing obviously the dimensions were out of whack, to start scheduling in time with people from my life who maybe I wanted to get closer with, haven't spent enough time with, have kind of neglected or haven't gotten in touch with in a while, and schedule it in my calendar because I knew that being sad or feeling lonely or feeling depressed was going to make me want to not spend time with people and want to go into a little hole. So I knew that holding myself accountable, I could put them on my calendar. And studies have even shown that having supportive relationships have the power to reduce the risk, the frequency and severity of actual illness while promoting healing. And it's actually really interesting. Like, it's something that you could do. Maybe you just reach out to an old friend, or maybe you message someone online you haven't talked to before and see if you guys can meet up or have a workout together or go out for a coffee, someone you've been chatting with. So those are really good things to think about. And just remember, like, this is going to be something where you might find that you have differences from other people. So that doesn't mean you have to force a relationship or a friendship just to create it, because remember, we want it to be healthy relationships and supportive relationships. So it might take some time to rekindle or establish those supportive and healthy relationships, but it's obviously worth the investment of time, energy, and effort. So a little habit could be scheduling someone into your calendar every single week. So give yourself a rating from 0 to 10, how you feel about the social dimension of well-being. This will make sense in the end why we're giving it a rating, by the way. Now let's look at the physical dimension of well-being. A lot of you probably feel like, I have this down, like this is my jam. But before you give yourself an 8, 9, or a 10, listen up. This isn't just about exercise. So of course, we know it's about, talking about our muscular endurance and strength and cardiorespiratory endurance and flexibility, our body composition. A lot of times after a show, our body composition changes, even during a show, right? Like we get down to pretty unhealthy levels of body composition. I remember multiple times my body composition was telling me, gain 10 pounds of fat. Gain, like, you just got to gain, like drop this much muscle, gain this much fat. It was crazy. So considering body composition. And then some more surprising factors that aren't always talked about, these are things like your sexual health, your drinking habits, any possible behaviors with drugs, asking yourself questions like, am I overweight? Do I smoke? Am I getting enough sleep? Do I get sick often? Those are the types of questions that can help you to rate yourself in this physical dimension. Another thing you should consider, do you get checkups? Like, do you take care of yourself medically? Do you perform regular self-tests, especially as females? This is something that we should be doing. Do you go to your medical and dentist appointments, or do you tend to back out and cancel or say there's some reason why you shouldn't? Like if you're on medication, are you actually taking it? And are you taking it how you should be taking it? Do you take care of yourself when you are ill? Like, take a rest. Don't go to the gym. Like, let your body recover. This woman, I ran into her the other day, and she's like, I have been sick for 10 days, and she's at the gym. And I'm like, well, I wanted so badly to say you probably would have healed by now if you had just rested for at least 2 days. But people don't ask for your advice. And if they do, you can give it to them. So anyways, asking yourself those types of questions, like, if you take care of yourself when you're ill, going to the doctor, etc. And then lastly, if you're surrounded by pollutants or smoke or germs, any harmful pollution, that's going to affect your physical well-being. So if someone in your immediate circle is smoking or doing it doesn't have to just be tobacco, right? It could be lots of different types of smoking and drug use. If you are always breathing in fumes, or maybe you work somewhere that you are surrounded by those types of fumes or emissions, well, what can you do to improve that, right? So even if you can't control where you work, maybe you can control the way that you are protected at work. And speaking of work, we're going to talk about the occupational dimension of well-being. So sometimes what I say in regard to this one has been known to potentially trigger some people, because you might not want to hear this one, but I do believe that it's necessary, right? Because this is all about satisfaction from your career. So I want to say your vocation, but not everyone is actually making a living with their vocation. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, we got to make a living. But I'm actually a person, I coach business professionals. I coach people to grow their business. I support my mentor with his clients to help them grow their business as well. So it's really interesting to me to see that anyone can take a leap of faith and do what they truly love. And the more you show up and impact, guys, I'm telling you, my only commitment every single day in life is to make an impact, share my stories, create real, raw, vulnerable content, like do everything that I love. And I trust that the money will come because I'm committed to serving at a high level. And I hope you guys feel that way from what I'm giving you. So, essentially, like, you might be wondering, like, well, what is the difference between vocation and a career, right? Like, how is this happening? So the actual definition of a vocation, and I put this in the slide because I feel like this can provide a lot of perspective when you're in review. Sometimes writing down all these definitions is annoying. So the actual definition of vocation is a strong feeling of suitability for a particular career or occupation. Well, the definition of career is having an occupation that's undertaken for a significant period of your life, with opportunities for progress. So maybe you're in corporate America, which maybe isn't your first choice, but you're climbing that corporate ladder and you're enjoying that. And it's taking up, like, from age 20 to 65, you've been doing this. So can you spot the difference in them? And if you can't, let me explain this, break it down a little bit more. Vocation, you feel like you're really suited for it. Career, you're doing it for a long time, but not necessarily loving or hating it, you know? Maybe one or the other, but not really clearly defined. So what does this actually have to do with wellness? Good question. So essentially, you spend most of your life working. So I believe it's important that it rewards you internally and externally. So here are some questions you can ask yourself to really define, or I guess rate this level of well-being. What kind of job is it that you want? Like, are you pursuing that job? Are you driven by salary only? Is it creative, challenging? Are you interacting with others? Do you like opportunities for advancement, or would you prefer entrepreneurship, or maybe even helping others? And those things can all be combined, so don't get me wrong in that. You know, it's like, could be all of the above, right? So what do you prefer? And keep in mind that everybody's different. So not one will be better than the other. And the point is, you are fulfilled by it. And if you're sitting here wondering, Celeste, I signed up for a post-show program for personal development. What the heck are you talking about occupation for? Well, this particular dimension of wellness involves maintaining great balance between work and leisure time. So your work environment should not stress you out or put you at risk for physical health harms. So you might be sitting there realizing that after your show, you stop focusing on your physical health and you just put all your effort into your occupation because it was time to grow and make money moves, right? Excuse me one second. So essentially, your work environment shouldn't be stressing you out or putting you at risk. And if it is, you know, you got to ask yourself, is your career your vocation? Is it stimulating? Is it enriching? Because if you're not happy, what's keeping you there? If you're not happy, what is keeping you there? You might say, Celeste, I need to make money. I need to pay my bills. Yes, you do, girl. That's fine. I get it. You got to do what you got to do. But how can you get over that limit and make a breakthrough to be well again? And how important is it to you that you do that? Because for some people, it's not necessary, right? They don't feel like they have to love what they do. They just want to have a job which allows them, or a career which allows them to live a life that they want to live, right? So I hope you can get yourself a rating based on that, okay? So essentially, it's about how satisfied you are with the work you're doing, how fulfilling it is, how inspiring and freeing and interactive it is, and how does it make you feel? How does it align with you? Let's talk about the environmental wellness. So I remember when I first learned about this dimension of well-being, and I was like, oh God, here we go. We're bringing politics into a world that I don't think it belongs into. But it does. It's not just a political thing. It's actually not a political thing at all. It's just part of all dimensions of wellness, which I am bringing to your attention. And that is the world around you. It is a real thing. You know, the world is around us. Biologically, we need food, we need water, we need clean air. So in order to rate yourself without stirring up debate, all you have to do is consider is if you're putting yourself and even others in a good environment to thrive. I like it that way because that makes it really easy to rate yourself. So if that's not good enough, that's okay. Ask yourself, do you interact with nature in your environment? Do you recycle? Do you throw away your trash? Do you take care of the earth around you? Are you polluting? Are you taking part in it sustaining the quality of the environment around you? Okay, so this doesn't mean you have to start a greenhouse. It just means that you're aware. So personally, I'll be very honest with you, I drive a muscle car that runs on gas, okay? I also recycle, and I try to use more natural products or reusable products. I throw away my trash and other people's trash. So you have to be aware that this also goes back to balance and having peace of mind, because some people don't want to compost all day, but they'll support the people who do. Let's talk about the intellectual dimension of wellness. Make sure you gave yourself a rating on that last one if you haven't yet. So this one is essentially, like, we can define it as using your mind as equipment of sustaining the seeking out of knowledge. Okay, so pursuing intellectual gains is important, right? Mental gains, hashtag mental gains. So this can include staying curious, reading, writing, a program like this, knowing what's currently happening in your time. So if you're intrigued by something, you should tap into that, allow that feeling to consume you, and then pursue it. Dive into the need and the hunger for knowledge. And you might say, Celeste, if I did that, I'd be all out of whack. I'd be at Google all day doing research papers. Okay, I see. So maybe this is something you start to prioritize because it's been on the back burner, and maybe it does start to tip the scale a little bit more, but it's okay because you're feeling more fulfilled. You're feeling more at peace. You're feeling like you're getting more out of life, and you're not sacrificing completely the other areas, and that's the key. It's when these areas start to control or take over, that's when we have a problem. So this dimension also includes making sure you're able to think on your feet, like really critically think, analyze, make evaluations, and obviously apply what you've learned. So find ways that you can challenge yourself this way. You have to consider, so while you're putting this on a scale, consider if you're in the pursuit of learning. Something that really strikes me in today's world is social media. You can learn so much. Like, just consider this program, for example, right? Or the people you follow. These are people you're getting like information from. We live in an age of information, but unfortunately not so much transformation, unless of course you commit to a program like this and do the work, and we all work together and I can support you in that. Then you're going to transform. But for the most part, we're being informed. So there's really no limit to what information you can have access to now, is what I'm trying to say. So just take full advantage of it. I'm not saying go read a huge book cover to cover about something you don't care about, but if you're intrigued by something, like I said, allow that feeling to consume you and just tap into it. Like, go for it. Get that hunger for knowledge flowing. Okay, so give yourself a score, I guess you could say, on this one. Alrighty. Boom, boom, boom. Emotional dimension of wellness. This is something that I think a lot of us can benefit from. So, emotional dimension of wellness. There are going to be a lot of questions with this one. There's a lot of information, so I need you to take notes, okay? I couldn't put everything into a slide. I couldn't even summarize it all in a slide because there's a lot that goes into it. Emotions are literally energy in motion. We have talked about them on previous workshops, from the intention setting to the body image healing to self-love, food, relationships. Like, we have talked about emotions. But have we yet discussed your balance of emotions, your wellness within emotion? So here we go. I'm going to ask you some questions to help you to put this on a scale, okay? So maybe as I ask you, like, yes, no, yes, no, 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 yes, okay? Are you able to laugh? Do you enjoy life? Are you flexible to changes? Can you cope with stress? Are you capable of maintaining intimate relationships? Can you recognize your feelings and others? Can you accept human emotion as normal and assess your own abilities and limitations realistically? The key word there is realistically. Do you manage your emotions well? Like, do you know how to manage the way you feel and cope with your personal emotions while knowing exactly how to seek the support you need when you really need it? Do you have mechanisms in place to cope with stress? So those questions, as you answer them, like if you answered yes to most of them, you'd probably be on a high scale of emotional well-being. And then if you answered yes to only a few, maybe a little bit lower, right? So something that's really cool, it is very interesting, and I'd like to know, like, if you knew that basically the mind used to be seen as separate from the body. Okay, so literally the mind was seen as separate from the body until research actually showed that our emotions have a major effect on our physical well-being. So considering how you carry yourself when you're happy or sad or confident can be an exact example of that. Your emotions will change your physical state. Your physiological state shifts with your emotions. Very interesting, right? So there are actually chemical messengers, fun fact, that literally connect the two, your body and your emotions. And they can be turned off by thoughts and feelings, or on by thoughts and feelings, right? So if you consider when somebody is depressed, but they have an imbalance, which is causing their depression, an unusual flow of hormones and chemicals in their brain, right? So that chemical messenger is changing the state of that person. Okay. So when someone is stuck in a negative state of being, their actual chemical system in the body can decrease and cause issues in the immune system, and illness can occur way more easily because of it. And on the flip side of that, being in a positive state more often than not actually results, obviously, in a positive reaction, like living longer, being a master of your own fate, like you really deeply believe that good things are always coming and will continuously happen, and you truly, truly believe you're making good things happen in your life. So, like, I have this, and you guys have followed me, or you've read my posts, you've listened to me in the workshops, and seen the way I interact with you guys. I truly believe that everything is always working out in everybody's favor, right? But there are people who don't believe that, and then things don't work out. So, you have to be very, very cognizant of the beliefs you have as well. And we're going to be going into some daily ritual creation, forgiveness, acceptance, things like that, and the Corsal codes, actions and alignment, etc., throughout the next couple weeks. So just be prepared for all of that. But essentially, like, having a positive mental state is undoubtedly a huge aspect in having overall better well-being. So, like I said, I know for a fact that this is powerful, and the mind's connection to the body is undeniable. When I was suffering with depression and anxiety at my lowest point, I realized how important it is to actually really connect with what you're going through. And like, I've learned with ways to cope with it, and I know that it's really it's really important to just be in your emotions, allow yourself to feel them. Remember, that goes back to accepting that it's human and that it's just part of this experience that we're having, really. So, one thing that's always really helped me and helped me a lot, I remember in therapy, actually, my therapist was like, I could send you to someone who could say, Celeste, take this medication. But if you did that, you might risk losing the best, happiest, most exuberant parts of you. Do you want that medication? I was like, no, I never wanted to be on medication. I definitely wouldn't want to lose that part of me. And she's like, good. So listen up. We're going to do a lot of this, and that's where I was even more motivated, right, by the pain of possibly losing one of the best parts of me. So, you got to consider, like, you can't have the great without the not so great. And similar to your own personality or emotional state, like, you can't have one without the other. So I'm such a passionate person that I literally Like, I literally am an extreme on all sides of on the spectrum. So while it can sometimes be painful, and I'm reminded that with the immense passion, love, and care, there's also a darker side that can come out from that as well. But I would not be who I am on the best side of the spectrum, the side that truly embodies me and who I am, without maybe the darker sides, right? It's kind of like at your brightest light, there's also a flip that could switch, right? So consider that. Like, there's this song I remember, and it was like, I did this when I was in singing lessons a long time. It was like, it's called Accentuate the Positive, I believe. And it goes, you've got to accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, latch onto the affirmative, and don't mess with Mr. in between. So that's a very powerful, powerful insight into, obviously celebrate and accentuate the positives, get rid of the negatives that don't serve you, latch on to what we know, the affirmative, right? Don't mess with Mr. In between. So don't mess with this in between state of, I don't want to feel, or I'm only feeling, but I'm just going to be stuck here. Like, don't mess with that. Okay. Look up that song and listen to it. It'll make you happier. Let's talk about our spiritual dimension of well-being. This is the last dimension that we have to talk about today. And then we're going to look at your score, or I keep saying scores. I'm not saying like you're like a worse or better, like you're a winner or a loser. Like, that's just like scaling it, right? So the spiritual dimension of wellness. So this is a must for improving your self-esteem. Okay. There is a strong connection between spiritual well-being and self-esteem because of the feelings behind someone's own self-worth, which actually usually comes from having hope and purpose in life. Because consider this, right? Self-esteem, we know self-esteem can't be developed through socioeconomic status, power, or even physical experience. We may feel like our self-esteem is higher because of those things, but if you took them away, who would you be? And would you be happy with that? Because that is self, right? Yeah, we're made up of the things and people and thoughts and beliefs and all this stuff around us. In fact, that's what makes us who we are. But we are also what we believe about these things. We are what we have chosen to believe. We are who we have chosen to become. So, self-esteem is very connected to your spiritual dimension of well-being. And this dimension is all about finding the direction or meaning of life. It's about developing values, beliefs, and principles which give you strength throughout your life, asking questions like, why am I here? What will provide me with fulfillment? And some of you might be on the slide thinking, oh my gosh, she's going to talk about religion. And some of you might be like, yeah, religion. So whatever camp you're in, it's cool. But usually these questions are actually answered with something beyond what we know here, something above reality. So me personally, I've always connected to thoughts of like the universe and the universal laws, everything's working out for me. I am on the right path. There's a collective consciousness. We're all working together as one to become one, so whatever you choose to believe, that's great. Use that to your advantage, right? Because, like, for example, like, there have been studies that show, like, patients who have cancer that were also on a constant pursuit of goals, meaning that they didn't believe the cancer was going to kill them. They were just on pursuit of goals that they believed or that were related to living a life full of meaning, right? Going back to spiritual dimension being about finding the direction or meaning of life, that actually boosted their natural killer cell activity in the immune system. Just by having a set direction or purpose or meaning to their life, they were able to increase the natural killer cell activity in the immune system. So if you have resistance to this, ask yourself why. Because this is obviously very important. We need this. It connects us to everything. So, out of 70, what is your score? What is your total? Go through every single dimension and just add them up. So maybe on your social well-being, you were a 4, maybe on your physical, you were a 7, maybe on your occupational, you were a 2. Just go through and start adding it up and write down what your score is. Now, next to it, write down the number you would like it to be. A realistic one, please. So maybe it's not 70, but maybe you're like, I recognize that my idea of balance is being able to be so committed to my pursuit of physical well-being without the other things being sacrificed. So maybe if I can always have my physical at an 8, then everything else would have to be this. So where do you want your score to be? Give this some thought. Now I want you to go back and think about what areas were below 5. Put a symbol next to those areas or write them down, like areas below 5, and then next to that areas above 5, or a different symbol. And if you had any 5s, go back and ask yourself again. Okay, so now on every single dimension, here's what you're going to be doing. This is like your action steps, okay? You can do this while you're listening, or you can start thinking about this over the next 1 or 2 days. You're going to set a realistic expectation for improvement, okay? So the next slide is going to help you to kind of understand what that action step might need to be, because we're going to look at where you are in your stages of change and behavior change. But by first understanding what I want you to do, it'll make sense when I explain the stages of change. Okay, so you're going to be setting a realistic expectation for improvement. So there's this thing called SMART goals. You might have heard of it, especially a lot of people in the fitness world know this from maybe being an ASM certified personal trainer or any CPT really. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So a SMART goal. Set a realistic expectation. Okay. So maybe you're not going to go from a 2 in your social wellness to a 10, but you might get up to a 4 before January 31st or January 30th. I don't even think don't ask me about dates, okay? But you know what I'm saying. So then you're going to create one habit you can begin now, not 10. Not like, oh my gosh, my social dimension of wellness is so low. I have to start calling a friend every day and hanging out with someone twice a week and going on 4. No. No. Just create one habit that you can begin now. And then you're going to add to it every week with a Post-it note on top. So you're going to make this inspiring board almost, or page, where you're going to have each of the dimensions laid out. And there's going to be a Post-it note under each one with a goal. So if you can imagine this, it's like, let me see if I can actually draw a picture. I'm going to draw a picture for you guys. So let's say you get a board or a piece of paper like this, right? Okay. And it'll have every dimension of well-being: 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. Okay. And underneath there's going to be a Post-it note. Right? So this is a Post-it note. Doesn't it look so good? So there's a Post-it note under each and every single one. Okay. Pretend that they're circular. And then this is going to have a goal. This is going to have a goal. One goal for each. And then next week, you're just going to take your Post-it note from your stack over here. You're going to rip it off and you're going to add it on top of each one. A new one on each and every single one. Okay? Then you're going to do this for several weeks until eventually you're just maintaining. It just starts coming to you naturally that, you're already going to the gym now 3 times a week. So maybe your new physical goal is that you schedule your doctor's appointments, or you finally get that weird thing checked out that you haven't looked at, or whatever it might be, right? Okay. That was a great drawing, I know. So now we're going to identify your stage of change, okay? Identifying your stage of change is what's going to allow us to see where you need to go. I chose these little icons because I thought that they would provide great understanding. So pre-contemplation is literally like you're totally unaware. You're just a little baby. You're totally unaware. You don't know what's going on. This shouldn't be any of you listening because we just evaluated everything. So you've become aware. but maybe you weren't before. So now you're aware. And then the contemplation stage. So you became aware of the problem and of the desired change. So this might have been you like 2 slides ago. Okay, I have a problem. Obviously, my occupational well-being is slacking, but I know that there is a desired change or level I can get to. Okay, and then you're preparing. So maybe this is you right now. You have an intention to take action. You're setting the goal in motion. Okay, and then you're in action stage when you've done like many weeks of the post-it note, right? Like you've practiced the behavior over and over again, and you've been adding post-it notes on top of post-it notes on your fun, artsy, or not so artsy, just get it done board. And then there's the maintenance stage of change. And this is where you're just sustaining the change you've created. Okay. Based on the stage you're in, you're going to create your action steps, goals, and priorities from here. So this could mean that if you are just realizing that your occupational dimension of well-being isn't as fulfilling as you would like it to be, maybe your contemplation is that you actually have to become aware of the desired change. Maybe you don't know what you want to change in it. So you can't actually have an intent to take action because you don't even know what change you want. Maybe you're like, I know I want to be more fulfilled. Or I know I don't want my work to be overpowering all the rest of my life. But what do I need to do to make sure that happens? So you're in contemplation, like, oh, I'm aware of it, but I don't know what the desired change is that I want. I know I'm really attached to the work because of my coworkers or because so-and-so told me I should take it or whatever. And then you can move into preparation based on that. Or maybe you're like, wow, I love that I am so in tune with my intellectual dimension of well-being. Like every day I'm seeking knowledge and applying it and learning more, that I just want to sustain this. I'd rather focus my energy on my physical health, which is gone by the wayside, or my emotional well-being that I've just been ignoring. See where I'm going with that? So it's really important to identify your stage of change so that you can set realistic expectations, create one habit, start doing those post-it notes, and get inspired, by changing the number, changing that scale score, getting it to where you want it to be, setting dates, setting due dates, right? Like I'll have met up with 20 people before February, or I'll have gone to the gym 3 times a week before, next year, or I will have began to limit my cardio because I know I need to grow now in my improvement season, or I will be eating healthier because I've been binging so much and I'll start applying those food freedom strategies so much more. Okay. And then getting rid of the things that make you feel unbalanced, right? And understanding it's all an illusion. So it's really just about prioritizing and making sure that your priorities are where you want them to be and what's going to actually make you happy without taking away from the other areas of your life. So with all of that being said, I would love to answer any questions you have. Just post them in the group, of course. Make sure you're staying on top of your notes, your workbook, your action steps, the checklist, etc. It's all there to support you in this. If you need to slow down, that's fine, but please try to stay on top of it. You're going to experience the change, but only if you commit to creating it. So I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this workshop. Just make it awesome. Bye.